So I'm on my way to deliver a keynote talk. I'm at the airport. I've beeped the security machine. So the guy's giving me the pat down. And he's doing, on this particular day, a particularly good pat down, if you catch my drift. And so when he kind of comes up to me to face me at eye level, I look at him and I say, "Come here often." To which he then looked at me and said, "Sir, we don't do humor here." To which I then said, "What? You don't do humor here at airport security where it's needed like more than anywhere on the planet? You don't do humor here?" Of course I didn't say that, but that's what I thought. And really what I should have said though is, "What? You don't do humor here? You need to watch Humor at Work TV." Welcome to Humor at Work. I'm going to be a few minutes. Oh, hey, Michael Kerr here. Thanks for dropping by the old program. I apologize for my appearance. I came down with a touch of the swine flu last week, but I think I'm going to be okay because I've rubbed ointment all over my body. Ointment, get it? Okay, that's a little lame. And probably not too funny to you if you've been seriously ill because of the H1N1, or if you know anyone who's died because of the H1N1. And people have died from it, so I would never do that. I'm not making fun of a tragic or potentially tragic situation. But here's the deal. Many of you working in healthcare facilities, senior facilities, have written into the program asking me my thoughts on using humor to help you cope with the H1N1 crisis. As well, many of you have written in telling me that morale has never been lower in your workplace because of the economic downturn. A lot of you are working extra hours, extra shifts. You have less revenue coming into your business perhaps. You're dealing with budget cuts. You're dealing with layoffs, downsizing. What a stupid term that is. It always makes me think that they're going to replace the tall people in the workplace with short people to save money somehow, downsizing. So I want to talk about both these topics, sort of a two-for-one deal in the weeks to come, carrying on into January. I want to start sort of a series here talking about using humor during challenging, difficult times. Because, as the old saying goes, when the going gets tough, the tough gets funny, I believe is how that goes. Well, or it's how it should go sometimes, because we have to know that when times get difficult, sometimes it really does come down to not survival of the fittest, but survival of the funniest. So this week on Survival of the Funniest, I just wanted to point out the need to up the fun factor if things are particularly challenging in your workplace these days, which sounds like a no-brainer, sounds a little obvious, sounds like common sense, and yet, as we all know, common sense is anything but common these days in many of our workplaces. But this really is the time to redouble our efforts, to make a concerted effort to actually plan some fun at work goals. If you catch yourself saying, "Oh, we can't afford to celebrate right now, we can't afford to do a social event, we can't afford to do anything that's fun in the workplace, we can't afford to bring in a dynamic speaker like Michael Kerr," well, I think you have to turn that around. Just kidding. Well, I'm not really kidding. That's a good idea, actually, now that I think of it. It's a brilliant idea. I think you have to turn that around, though, and say, no, you can't afford not to do those things. When you realize, when you understand, when you believe in the power of humor to pull people out of the dungeon, to help people manage their stress and problem solve, humor is needed now more than ever. So make sure you're planning for it. Create a Humor at Work committee. Now's the time to do that. Maybe don't call it a committee, because committees tend to be a place where ideas go to die and the oxygen gets sucked out of the room, so call it something a little more fun. But plan now to make sure you are taking care of people's mental health and sanity and their well-being. And also, you can't afford not to celebrate a little black humor. Black humor tends to go up during difficult times. Totally normal, right? In fact, I was out here reading this leadership book, Dilbert and the Way of the Weasel, and I actually do recommend that to leaders in my leadership workshops, because you can learn as much about the workplace from Dilbert as you can from those other serious books. And here's a kind of cool stat. People have tracked this, and Dilbert becomes more popular during economic downturns. So as the economy tanks, Dilbert goes up. Totally understandable. Subversive humor becomes a little more popular. And we have to remind ourselves that there's a difference, again, between laughing at a difficult situation versus using humor to cope with it, to normalize it, to understand it and take the fear away. So, don't be afraid of celebrating a little black humor in the workplace. And also, learn to read between the punchlines of that black humor, of the subversive humor that may be going on in your workplace in challenging times. Because a lot of people will use humor as a way of conveying some pretty serious messages that they might otherwise feel uncomfortable delivering. So as leaders, I think we need especially to read between the punchlines, to hear what people are really feeling and really experiencing on the front lines during challenging times. Now, because so many of you are obviously stressed out these days, I have decided to extend our sale on 340 ways to put humor to work, so you can get all sorts of very specific ideas on putting some of this stuff into practice. So if you buy it from our online secure shopping cart special deal, $9.95, all you have to do, ordinarily it's $27, but in the coupon box, little coupon box, you just have to put in HAHA, H-A-H-A, and it'll be yours for $9.95, and hopefully you can find some great ideas to put into practice in your workplace.